The morning they brought the excavator up the mountain, 3 things were happening at once. A sheriff's deputy was reading Beverly, the HOA president, her rights beside my river. A family from Ohio was screaming at me about their non-refundable glamping reservation. And one of the 9 illegal cottages, a pastel blue one with Serenity written in cursive, was actively drifting down the river like a sanctimonious houseboat. I stood on my own land, coffee in hand, watching county code enforcement tag every structure with neon orange condemned signs. Beverly shrieked that this was common HOA space and that I couldn't do this. The deputy turned to me, asking me to confirm that all 9 structures were on my parcel and that I had never granted permission. I smiled, dug out the survey plat from my folder, and handed it over. Every nail, I said. She had been running an illegal river resort on my property for 2 years, and I intended to press every charge they offered. One of the Ohio tourists, rolling a suitcase on the muddy bank, whispered, "You mean we've been staying on stolen land Airbnb?" My name is Gavin Harlan. I am, by all known metrics, boring, an IT consultant who works from home, enjoys quiet, and owns more camping gear than social skills. 4 years ago, I bought 10 acres of steep mountain land on the outskirts of Cedar Hollow, a town whose identity boiled down to trees and an antique mall. The lot was odd, triangular, and rocky, with a decent stretch of riverfront at the bottom. The upper corner touched a cookie-cutter HOA development called River Bluffs, where all the houses looked like Pinterest had a stroke. I did not live in River Bluffs. I lived in a small A-frame cabin I built on the non-HOA side of my land, tucked behind the ridge. No shared amenities, no dues, no architectural review committee debating the moral implications of mailbox colors. Unfortunately, I shared a property line with a woman whose bloodstream was 60% Chardonnay, 40% bylaws. Beverly, president of River Bluffs HOA. Beverly introduced herself with her title. "I'm Beverly, HOA president," she said the first time we met, standing at the construction fence while my contractor poured concrete. I wiped my hands and nodded. "Gavin, not in the HOA," she added, tilting her head with a fake smile. "We oversee the river corridor as a unified aesthetic." "Actually, I oversee your side," I said, pointing at the neat subdivision. Then I gestured at the thick trees behind me. "This side is just earth." She didn't like that answer. Her smile shifted from PDA cupcake mom to complaint letter in human form. That should have been the end. It wasn't. The first year, Beverly stuck to small skirmishes. She'd park her golf car at the property line, sipping white wine from a stainless steel tumbler, watching my cabin construction like a crime documentary. She'd call out, "We prefer earth tones for structures near the river." "Bay sage taupe." "Good news," I'd shout back. "The Constitution prefers private property rights." Then the letters started, hand-delivered, stuffed in my gate, all with HOA letterhead. Violation notice for unapproved shed visible from community trail. It was my compost bin. Violation notice for non-compliant parking of utility vehicle. It was my Tacoma on my own gravel pad. Advisory notice for unsightly firewood stacks near Riverview corridors. I ignored them all. I wasn't in their HOA. My deed said so. The county's GIS map said so. Reality said so. So in the second year, she escalated to trespassing. I caught her on my trail cam, marching down the footpath behind my cabin, tape measure in hand. She was wearing a floppy sun hat and wore the expression of someone about to condemn a playground. When I confronted her politely at first, she sniffed. HOA leadership has the right to inspect adjacent properties that impact community value. "That's not a law," I said. "It's in our covenants," she replied, "for properties in your HOA." She looked genuinely offended, as if I had suggested gravity didn't apply to her. "That land by the river has always been community space," she said. "We've walked there for years." "Walking doesn't equal ownership," I said. "That's not how any of this works." She left in a huff, muttering something about the uncooperative element. Months went by. I lived my quiet hermit life, coding, hiking, fishing in my stretch of river. I noticed more and more River Bluffs residents wandering down toward the water. Then came joggers, then dog walkers, then entire picnic parties. I put up a small polite sign, private property, river access by permission only. Someone tore it down. Then one weekend, I was away at a conference. When I returned, new signs were staked along the HOA walking path. River S. Bluffs Community River Cottages. Luxury mountain glamping. Reservations via HOA office only. I frowned. River cottages. From the ridgeline, I could see roofs down by the water, pastel roofs with tiny decks. I hiked down. Squatting on my riverbank like a line of smug marshmallows were 9 tiny cottages, all in shades I can only describe as Instagram vomit. Blush pink, mint, baby blue, lavender. Each had a wooden sign with a cutesy name: Whispering Brook, Tranquil Pines, River's End. String lights, Adirondack chairs, potted plants, pathways, a communal fire pit, and not a single permit tag in sight. A woman in yoga pants popped out of one, carrying a charcuterie board. "Oh," she said, startled. "Are you part of the HOA staff?" "I'm the guy who owns this land," I said. She laughed like I told a joke. Beverly said, "The HOA owns all this. We rented Tranquil Pines for the weekend." She ran it all through an app, super high-tech. She showed me her phone. Sure enough, River S. Bluffs HOA Glamping Cottages, hosted by Bevk, 4.9 stars. Superhost, Cedar Hollow. I stared at the 9 structures, deck railings, cute curtains. She hadn't just wandered onto my land. She'd built an entire riverfront micro-resort and was renting it out. I didn't explode. I didn't storm into the HOA clubhouse. I didn't start a Facebook flame war. I did what boring IT consultants do best. I made a folder. Actually, 3 folders. Folder 1, ownership. I drove to the county courthouse and got certified copies of my deed, the subdivision plat for River S. Bluffs, and the parcel map showing my lot line extending to the river. The HOA's property stopped 50 feet above the riverbank. Every cottage was below that line. I hired a surveyor to mark it physically with bright orange stakes. Folder 2, Beverly's Greatest Hits. I collected screenshots of her HOA river cottage listings on multiple platforms, reviews praising her as a superhost, promotional emails advertising exclusive member discounts. I downloaded all my trail cam footage and ordered 2 more cameras, this time with audio. Within weeks, I had video of Beverly directing contractors where to build, telling workers not to worry because it was community land and the property line was way over there, insisting no permits were needed. They definitely were. Folder 3, Regulatory Apocalypse. 3 key facts. The riverbank was officially a floodplain. Any structure required multiple county permits. Renting out cottages commercially required business licenses, safety inspections, and occupancy approvals. Beverly had none of these. Oh, and one more thing I learned from a very enthusiastic guy in a beige vest at the state environmental office. The river was home to a threatened trout species. Disturbances to its habitat were taken very seriously. Hypothetically, I asked, what if someone built 9 unpermitted cottages with septic or gray water runoff? He didn't let me finish. Huge fines, mandatory mitigation, potential criminal charges if stop work orders were ignored. Please tell me that's hypothetical. I did not. I brought him a thumb drive. Then I mailed my beautifully tabbed packets to County Code Enforcement, County Zoning and Planning, State Environmental Protection, and the IRS Whistleblower Office, including copies of the rental income. Listings attached, and for Spice, the insurance company covering River S. Bluffs common amenities. The turning point came 2 months later, on a rainy Saturday. One of Beverly's renters slipped on the muddy riverbank, broke an ankle, and had to be evacuated by ambulance. The paramedics couldn't get their truck down the narrow, rutted path. They radioed in unapproved structures in a floodplain with limited access. Those words lit up more agencies than a Christmas tree. By Monday, my mountain was swarming with county trucks, and Beverly's river cottages were officially on the radar of every agency whose job title included the word enforcement. It started with red tags. Code enforcement posted them on every cottage. Stop work order. Unpermitted structure. Entry prohibited. Beverly tried to bluff. These have been here for years, she told the inspector. Grandfathered in. The inspector pointed at the still wet concrete footings under cottage number 9. Ma'am, he said deadpan, the only thing grandfathered here is your attitude. Next came cease and desist letters from zoning, ordering an immediate halt to all short-term rentals on the riverbank. Beverly called an emergency HOA meeting in the clubhouse. I wasn't invited, of course, but one of the less deranged neighbors, Tom, a decent guy who liked craft beer and minded his own business, forwarded me the email chain. River S. Bluffs residents were furious. Not at me, at her. Apparently, she had framed the cottages as member amenities, but was double-dipping by listing them publicly at higher rates and pocketing the difference. You told us the HOA owned that land. Now we're on the hook for fines, one neighbor wrote. Beverly replied with a 700-word paragraph, repeating common vision for river usage 3 times and this uncooperative adjacent landowner twice. Then the state environmental officer showed up with a clipboard and a look of holy purpose. "You're the actual owner?" he asked. "Yep." "And you never approved any of this?" "Nope." "Would you be willing to sign a complaint?" I held up my pen. You had me at threatened trout. By week 3, the paper trail engulfing Beverly looked like a wildfire. County code violations with daily accruing fines, zoning citations for unauthorized commercial use of residential land, environmental violations for habitat damage and unpermitted structures, state fire marshal notices for uninspected rental units with unsafe occupancy potential, and a friendly IRS letter requesting clarification of undeclared rental income. The HOA board, once a gaggle of Beverly's yes men and wine night disciples, suddenly realized they were sitting on skyrocketing insurance risk, potential special assessments, and a president who had personally signed every sketchy resort expense. They held another emergency meeting. Agenda: removal of Beverly as HOA president. The vote was not close. Which brings us back to the day of the excavator. After agencies compared notes and realized the cottages were fully illegal on land not owned by the HOA and subject to environmental remediation, the county gave Beverly a choice: remove the structures herself under state supervision, or the county would condemn them, fine her, and bill her for demolition. She chose the worst possible third option. She refused. The Ohio family, on their last illegal weekend stay, had just unloaded their SUV when the first county truck pulled up. "Ma'am," the deputy said, "we've served you multiple notices. You can't condemn community property without our board vote," she shouted, mascara running. The deputy pointed to me, standing a few yards away, coffee in hand. "Not community property," he said. "His property. You built on it without consent." He requested removal. The Ohio dad turned toward her. "Wait," he said, confused. "You don't own this?" Beverly switched tactics. "We had a gentleman's agreement," she snapped, gesturing at me. "He urged us to enhance the river area. This is a misunderstanding." I pulled out a folder, a notarized, certified letter stating I explicitly denied permission for any HOA structures on my land, mailed months before. The inspector held it up. "This is your signature, Ms. Randall." Her mouth opened and closed like a trout in very, very troubled water. They started with Serenity, the blue cottage half in the river from recent rain. The excavator's claw grabbed it like a toy, lifted it, and set it on a flatbed. Ohio kids burst into tears. "Mom, our glamping." The operator looked apologetic. By noon, 4 cottages were on trucks headed to an impound lot. 3 collapsed when lifted. 2, sitting squarely in the most sensitive part of the riverbank, were dismantled piece by piece under the environmental officer's watchful eye. Beverly called her lawyer, yelling about property values and amenities, threatening to sue me personally. The deputy calmly handed her fresh paperwork. "Ma'am, at this point, you should be more worried about the DA than your neighbor." The karmic cherry came from HOA Treasurer Craig, clutching his own folder. He said, voice shaking. Beverly used HOA funds to build these without full board approval and doctored some reserve reports. The deputy's eyebrows went up. Misuse of funds. Craig nodded rapidly. "My wife told me to tell you everything." Beverly turned on him. "You coward. You approved every on your say-so." The The deputy noted it and spoke into his radio. "I'm going to need someone from financial crimes, too." Beverly's expression shifted. No longer petty neighborhood dictator. Now the opening act of a criminal investigation. All the power she wielded through threats, letters, and false authority dissolved in the mud of my riverbank, beside the ruins of tranquil pines. In the end, fallout was thorough. Beverly was permanently removed as HOA president, banned from any board service. The county fined her over $80,000. The state mandated multi-year environmental remediation, with Beverly personally responsible for $45,000 in costs. The IRS scrutinized 2 years of undeclared rental income, leading to $32,000 in back taxes and penalties. The DA charged her with fraudulent use of HOA funds and unlicensed rentals. She took a plea deal. 2 years probation, full restitution to the HOA totaling $67,000, and mandatory financial ethics classes. She sold her big river house, moved into a cramped condo with no HOA, no clubhouse, and no river view. When the judge read the final order, Beverly sat frozen, pale, realizing her total cost exceeded $220,000. Her lawyer patted her arm as the gavel came down with a sharp crack echoing through the courtroom.